You are sitting in a French restaurant. A plate arrives. On it are 6 small shells, each filled with bubbling green butter. The aroma of garlic fills the air. You pick up the tiny fork and the tongs. You extract a small, tender morsel. You take a bite. You are eating a snail. And somewhere in the world, people are celebrating a holiday just for this dish. May 24th is National Escargot Day, a day dedicated to the humble land snail transformed into a gourmet delicacy. But here's the surprising part. This holiday is not French. It is American. Let us go back to the beginning. The story of escargot in France begins not in France at all, but in ancient Rome. Archaeological evidence shows that snails have been eaten by humans for thousands of years. Shells have been found in prehistoric sites across Europe, from Spain to Greece. In some caves in France, snail shells have been discovered alongside Neanderthal tools, suggesting that early humans ate snails long before modern civilization existed. But the Romans perfected the art. They had a specific method for preparing snails. They would feed them wine and barley to make them more appetizing. They also kept snail gardens called cochlearia, where snails were fattened and prepared for feasts. The oldest surviving Roman cookbook, from the 1st century AD, written by a man named Apicius, contains a recipe for snails. The recipe called for a sauce made from olive oil, wine, and fermented fish paste called garum. In ancient Rome, snails were considered an elite dish, fit for emperors. The Roman natural philosopher Pliny the Elder wrote about snails in his encyclopedia Natural History, published around 77 AD. He described how snails were fed on milk and bran to make them larger and more flavorful. He also noted that the best snails came from the island of Crete and the region of Illyria, which is modern-day Croatia. From Rome, the tradition spread to other parts of Europe, including what is now France. When the Roman Empire declined, snail eating continued in the French countryside. Monasteries kept snail gardens. Peasants gathered wild snails. But snails did not become a French national dish until much later. The key moment came in 1814. The place was Burgundy, a region in eastern France known for its wine and its rich cuisine. The French diplomat Prince Charles Maurice de Talleyrand was hosting a dinner for Tsar Alexander I of Russia. Talleyrand was one of the most influential diplomats in European history. He had served under both King Louis XVE and Napoleon Bonaparte. He was known for his lavish dinners and his political cunning. But there was a problem on this particular evening. It was the kitchen's off hours. The chef, whose name was Antonin, had no food prepared. According to the story, the chef went into the garden behind the palace. He collected snails. He cooked them with butter, garlic, and parsley. He served them to the Tsar. Tsar Alexander, I was delighted. He loved the dish. He asked for the recipe and took it back to Russia. From that moment, escargots à la bourguignonne, or Burgundy-style snails, became a sensation. The dish spread across France and eventually around the world. The specific snail used in Burgundy is called Helix pomatia. It is also known as the Roman snail or the Burgundy snail. It is one of the largest edible snail species, growing up to 5 centimeters or about 2 inches in size. The shell is pale brown with darker bands. The snail itself is light in color and has a firm, slightly chewy texture. Today, Helix pomatia is protected in many parts of Europe. In the United Kingdom, it is illegal to kill or trade this snail. In Germany and Austria, harvesting wild Burgundy snails is restricted to certain months and requires a permit. In France, the hunting season for wild Burgundy snails runs from July 1st through March 31st, and only snails larger than 3 centimeters can be collected. The French love for snails did not stop with Burgundy. In the south of France, near the Spanish border, a completely different snail tradition developed. It is called Cargolade. This tradition comes from the Catalan region, which spans both southern France and northeastern Spain. In this region, snails are prepared differently. For Cargolade, the snails are prepared over an open flame. They are covered in salt and paprika. They are grilled over vine wood. The wood from grapevines gives the snails a slightly smoky, fruity flavor. The snails are cooked in a special pan called a cargolera, which has small round indentations to hold each snail in place. There is a specific technique to eating cargolade. You hold the snail by its shell. You use a toothpick or a small fork to pull out the meat. You dip it in a sauce called alioli, which is a garlic mayonnaise. You eat it standing up, often outdoors, with your fingers. The village of Bompas in southern France holds an annual snail festival in July. At this festival, over 160,000 snails are served to locals and visitors. The snails are prepared in giant batches. The festival includes music, dancing, and competitions for the best snail dish. The town of Digoin in central France hosts the Fête de l'Escargot, which has been running for over 30 years. This festival celebrates both the Burgundy snail and the local apple harvest. Visitors can eat snails in every form imaginable, from traditional garlic butter to snail sausages and snail pâté. In the village of Bertric-Barry in southwestern France, a snail festival has been documented since at least 1975. In that year, a news report from NBC described how 600 townspeople would consume 18,000 snails in a single day. The snails were served in a garlic and parsley sauce called persillade, so the French clearly love snails. France consumes approximately 40,000 to 60,000 tons of snails every year. That is about 40 to 60 million kilograms. To put that in perspective, that is roughly the weight of 4 to 6 Eiffel Towers. About 80% of the snails consumed in France are imported from other countries. The largest suppliers are Romania, Poland, Hungary, and Greece. French farms produce the remaining 20%. This is because wild snail populations in France have declined significantly due to habitat loss and overharvesting. And yet, despite this massive consumption, the national holiday for escargot did not come from France. It came from America. National Escargot Day is celebrated every year on May 24th. But here is the twist. The exact origins of the holiday are unknown. No one knows who started it or when. And it did not come from France. According to multiple sources, including the National Day Calendar, the holiday most likely originated in the United States. The National Day Calendar is an organization that tracks and verifies national holidays. They have been researching the origins of National Escargot Day for years. Their official statement says that the origins of this holiday are still being researched, but it most likely has an American founder. Why would an American create a holiday for snails? The answer is marketing. American consumption of escargot boomed in the 1980s. French cuisine became extremely popular in American cities. French restaurants opened across the country. Julia Child, the famous American chef, had introduced French cooking to American homes through her television show in the 1960s and 1970s. By the 1980s, Americans were ready to try more adventurous French dishes. Escargot, with its garlic butter and its special forks, became a symbol of sophistication. Ordering escargot showed that you were cultured, adventurous, and not afraid of unusual foods. Restaurants across the United States added escargot to their menus. Supermarkets began selling canned escargot. Cooking magazines published escargot recipes. The American food industry saw an opportunity. By creating a national food holiday, restaurants could promote their escargot dishes. Media outlets could write about French cuisine. Food lovers could try something new. And it worked. Today, National Escargot Day is recognized by food blogs, restaurant chains, and calendar websites across the United States. Many restaurants offer special deals on escargot on May 24th. Some offer a free appetizer with the purchase of an entree. Others create special escargot tasting menus. The holiday has even spread beyond America. In 2026, May 24th falls on a Sunday. Food enthusiasts in Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia have also adopted the celebration. There are even mentions of the holiday in Chinese media, where May 24th is referred to as French Snail Day. So why May 24th? The date appears to be arbitrary. No significant event in snail history happened on May 24th. No famous chef was born on that day. No treaty was signed. No snail-related invention was patented. Theories exist. Some suggest that late spring is when snails are most active and flavorful in Europe, so May 24th falls within that window. Others suggest that the date was chosen to fill a gap in the national holiday calendar. May has fewer food holidays than other months. National Escargot Day may have been placed on May 24th simply because the date was available. But here is another secret. France does not actually have an official National Snail Day. The French do not celebrate escargot on May 24th. They do not need a special day for snails. For the French, escargot is simply part of everyday cuisine. It is served at restaurants year-round. It appears on Christmas Eve menus and wedding receptions. It is not a once-a-year novelty. If you ask a French person about National Escargot Day, they will likely look confused. The holiday is not taught in French schools. It is not advertised on French television. It is not marked on French calendars. It is not mentioned in French newspapers. It is an American invention celebrating a French dish. There is, however, a World Snail Day. It is celebrated on October 23rd. But this is a different holiday with a different purpose. World Snail Day was created by French snail farmers to promote the snail farming industry. It focuses on the agricultural and economic aspects of snail production, not on eating escargot. The French also have regional snail celebrations. The Fête de l'Escargot in Dijon, which we mentioned earlier, is a local festival, not a national holiday. The Snail Festival in Bompas is also a local event. These festivals are tied to specific villages and regions. They are not celebrated across France. So why do Americans call it escargot instead of snails? The answer is marketing. Escargot is the French word for snail. In English, snail has negative associations. Snails are garden pests. They eat your lettuce. They leave slimy trails. By using the French word escargot, restaurants made the dish sound elegant, foreign, and sophisticated. The same marketing strategy worked for other foods. Rapeseed oil became canola oil. Patagonian toothfish became Chilean sea bass. Slimehead became orange roughy. Giving a food a more appealing name increases sales. Escargot is just snails with better public relations. Now, let us talk about how escargot is actually prepared, because there is more to it than just butter and garlic. The process begins with the snails themselves. Not all snails are edible. Some are not safe to eat. If a snail has eaten certain plants, its flesh can cause illness. That is why wild snails must be purged before cooking. For 4 to 6 days, the snails are starved. They are fed flour, thyme, and rosemary. This cleans out their digestive systems and removes any unpleasant flavors. In commercial farming, a practice called heliciculture, snails are raised specifically for food. The word heliciculture comes from helix, the scientific name for the garden snail genus. Heliciculture farms exist in many countries, including France, Italy, Spain, Greece, and the United States. On a snail farm, the snails are kept in fenced enclosures. They are fed ground grains, calcium supplements, and fresh vegetables. The enclosures are kept moist because snails need humidity to survive. They are protected from birds and other predators. Once the snails reach the right size, they are harvested. The harvesting process varies by farm. Some farms collect snails by hand. Others use mechanical harvesters. The classic Burgundy preparation is simple but rich. The snails are removed from their shells. They are cooked in a mixture of butter, garlic, parsley, and sometimes white wine or brandy. Then they are placed back into the shells, covered with the green butter, and baked until bubbling. The butter melts and seeps into the meat. The garlic and parsley add flavor. In the south of France, the preparation is completely different. For Cargolade, the snails are prepared over an open flame. They are covered in salt and paprika. They are grilled over vine wood. As they cook, they release a liquid called drool. This liquid is a natural secretion of the snail. Some people like their Cargolade with lots of drool. Others prefer them dried out. There is also a special tool involved. Escargot are served with a small 2-pronged fork and a pair of tongs that look like miniature pliers. The tongs hold the hot shell steady. The fork extracts the meat. You dip the meat in more butter if you want. You wipe the remaining butter from the plate with crusty bread. In France, escargot is often served as an appetizer. It is rarely eaten as a main course. A typical serving is 6 or 12 snails per person. The snails are usually served on a metal dish with small indentations to hold each shell upright. Eating escargot is not a fast process. It is slow, deliberate, and social. You talk while you extract. You laugh while you drip butter on your shirt. You eat with your hands. It is a dish that forces you to slow down and enjoy the moment. So the next time you see a plate of escargot, remember the long journey behind it. From ancient Rome, where emperors dined on wine-fed snails. From Burgundy in 1814, where a quick-thinking chef named Antonin saved a diplomatic dinner with snails from the garden. From southern France, where villagers gather around vinewood fires to eat snails with their fingers. From the American food industry, which created a national holiday to sell more snails. And from a simple marketing decision to call snails escargot instead. The French do not need a holiday to eat snails. They eat them all year. But if you want an excuse to try escargot for the first time, or to celebrate your love for them, May 24th is your day. That is why France has a National Day of the Snail, even though it is not French at all.